time MapQuest got us stranded for 6 hours. Happy Saturday, everyone, and welcome to Story Saturday. Last weekend, I shared a story with you guys about getting stuck in the woods in a Jeep with a hurricane approaching. If you want to check out that story, the link is up here, or I'll put it down below in the description. Anyways, today's story is another story about getting stuck in the woods, though this time we did not have a Jeep, it was a minivan. So it was the summer between my junior year and my senior year in high school. A buddy of mine's father owned a camping plot in the upstate region of New York. So that friend, myself, and another buddy loaded into my Jeep and drove up there for the weekend. I think we headed up there on a Thursday night or a Friday night, but anyways, we got there. His dad was up there. His dad had a minivan at the time, and there was a waterfall that was about an hour and a half away from the campsite. So seeing as I brought my Jeep and we all wanted to go see this waterfall, we couldn't all fit into the Jeep, so we decided to take the minivan. The kid's dad said he had only gone there once before on his motorcycle, and that was a couple years ago, so he had printed the directions out on MapQuest. For those of you that don't know, MapQuest was a website that you would go to. It was kind of like Google Maps, kind of like Google Earth, how it is now, except it wasn't as detailed and it wasn't as accurate. Granted, those two services, Google Maps, Google Earth, all those GPS things do have their faults, but back then they had a lot more faults. So speaking of faults, we all got into this minivan and headed out to the waterfall. There was no problem at all until it told us to turn left down a dirt road. Immediately turning onto the road, it looked like it was somewhat maintained. There was a couple of houses there, so we figured there was going to be more houses later on down the road. So we drove for about a mile and a half until it started to get a little muddy. Having nowhere to turn around, we actually got stuck in the mud and we had to push the van forward to continue further down this road. That was our second mistake. The first one was turning down the road. So we traveled down this road for another mile and a half, maybe even closer to 2 miles, and we got hung up on a rock that was buried beneath some very, very tall grass that was in the middle of the road. There was absolutely no way that we could push this van off the rock in either direction, let alone find a way to turn around and head back towards the main road. On top of that, there was no cell phone service up there, and every single thing on the printed directions for MapQuest said that we should continue down that road. Like I said, though, there was no service, and there was only 3 people that had cell phones at the time with us, so we had one phone stay where the van was. One person headed down the road in the direction that we were traveling, and myself headed back towards the main road that we had turned off of. According to my buddy who ended up walking down the road in the direction that we were traveling, it was a good thing that we ended up getting stuck there because there was a bridge that was destroyed and you didn't really see it until you got to the point of the road that was all washed out before the bridge. Myself, though, I made it out about 3/4 of a mile to a mile away from where the van was before I got cell phone service. It took forever to try to explain to this guy where exactly we were. Long story short, though, after I did get a hold of him, he said that he would have to call us back when they got in the area, and they were expecting a 1.5 hour wait time for the tow truck to be able to get out there. So I made my way back to the van, let everybody know what was going on, and we took turns going back out there with a phone so we could get a hold of the people when they decided to call us whenever they had arrived. Coming up on about 2.5 hours after we initially got stuck, after we had to place the phone call to the towing company, the wrecker comes, and this thing was just tiny. This thing was meant to pull a car, not a minivan. It wasn't even meant to go off the road, it looked like. So the guy got out of the wrecker, walked with us down the trail, down the entire distance of the road. This was like a 30-minute walk just to get back from the road to where the van was stuck, and he kind of just took a look at the situation to figure out what was the best vehicle to get down there. And he had to walk all the way back out to the truck. His radio didn't work at the time. He had to call back to the main dispatch place to send a different wrecker out there. Like I said, the long story short, they ended up sending 3 wreckers out there to try to get this minivan unstuck. We were able to get unstuck. There was a bunch of damage that was done to it, so we actually had to get it towed from where the location was all the way back to the campground. It was just a crappy weekend altogether. But yeah, that's just my story about following directions from MapQuest. Well, not myself following directions, but somebody else following directions. Me being in the same situation, getting stuck in the woods, following terrible, terrible directions available on the internet. I guess the moral of this story is, folks, just double check everything before you head out on a road trip. Double check that road that's made of dirt that you're about to go down. Make sure it's actually going to lead out to somewhere or lead you to where you want to go. You guys enjoy the rest of your Saturday. I'll see you tomorrow for another reaction video. Peace.